And that let's take a step back literally means he'll take his own ideas or anybody else's ideas, scrap them and restart from zero. Battle, which is you're the boss's kid. People will listen to you for that. And you have to find a way to build your own identity, your own respect. I think as you grow bigger, there's a tendency to take less and less risk.
From childhood dinner table conversations about code to boardroom decisions shaping the future of Indian business, Tejas Goenka has lived and breathed Tally his whole life. Now, as the managing director of Tally Solutions, he's not just preserving a legacy, he's rewriting it for the digital age. A second-gen leader with a first-class vision, Tejas is steering one of India's most trusted tech brands into bold, uncharted territory, empowering millions of MSMEs along the way. Today, we unpack the mind behind the mission, the strategy behind the software, and the human behind the helm.
Today on the Expression podcast, I'm joined by Tejas Goenka, a dynamic force at Tally Solutions. Let's dive quickly into it. Hi Tejas, welcome to our show.
Thank
you for making time for this. I know you've been really busy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. So let's rewind a bit. You mentioned that when you first entered Tally office, you were in chappals and shorts.
Yeah.
What was going on in your mind? And what did that rebel Tejas tell the MD Tejas, which B school never had taught?
I think that was at a time in my life when I was seeking purpose. I had a lot of friends who were extremely motivated, enthusiastic. I don't know if I had that in my life back then. Mm-hmm. And there is this pressure, I think, from society. It was never there for my parents or my grandparents to join, family business or anything like that. But I think my friends expected me to.
Okay.
That was the rebellious part of me, saying that I'm never going to do it. But I think when I did start going to office, I think the mission that the company was sort of on, the problems that they were facing, I felt like I could participate, I could help. And I think that attachment to that little bit of purpose was sort of what got me from shorts into trousers and formals at that time. Yeah.
But I mean, US has this very unique thing in Google Office that they walk in with shorts and...
Yeah.
But anyhow, how did your father react to this? Was he angry? Did he smile? Or did he secretly admire the rebellious?
Cool, calm and collected. I think I'm honestly blessed to have the parents that I do. They've not only never judged, I think they've always supported a lot of the actions and initiatives that either me and my sister take. So I think it's always been support. I've never felt the judgment. I'm sure secretly though, they were just like, what is going on?
Sure. I also know that you never really planned to join the family business. Was there a specific moment or experience that shifted your mindset and you were like, okay, this is where I'm meant to be?
Yeah, 100%. I remember this so clearly. So, like I shared, I was looking for something. And one day my dad called. This was after I spent a summer at the company. And my dad called me in my last year. And he's like, not even in my last year, my third year of college. And he's like, do you want to come back and run the place? And I told him that I'll give it a thought and come back. And I spoke to a few friends of mine. And I think that the reaction that I got was, there's never going to be a 21-year-old child who will have the blessing and support of their parents to come back and run things. So if he really does want you to run it, don't sit and waste your time and just pick it up. So I think the sense of responsibility that I felt at that time, I don't think I could have felt in any other place. And I think that's what got me to change my mind.
Okay. But did you have any other plans? As in...
No, I was a lost college kid.
Okay. So your father is also known as the father of the Indian software product industry. What's something your dad said to you as a mentor, not as your father, which stayed with you at Tally every day?
This is when I was a kid. It's got nothing to do with business or work. He's like, there's always a nicer way to get things done. So always be kind. I think that's sort of stuck. I genuinely think it's a lot of how we look at things at Tally as well. There's a lot of
Empathy.
I think a lot of people call it customer centricity, but genuinely I think we're blessed to have a team that really goes out of their way. So if someone has some problem at midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, it wouldn't matter. I'd wake up, our support team would wake up, our engineers would wake up, it wouldn't matter. So I think that's probably the center of what sticks to me the most.
Lovely. And he also built Tally when India had barely any computers, right? So let alone software companies. What do you think gave him that courage in that time? And now how has that courage shaped yours?
That's a great question. I think, I don't know what would have given him the courage back then. I think it was almost a place of no option. So we used to run a bobbin making factory that had burnt down. We were heavily in debt. And I think that there was no other way out really. So it seemed like he had to do what he did and my granddad had to do what he did to get to where we are. So it seems like back then it's probably something that was not much of an option. And to your second part of the question of how that impacts me today, I think probably two parts. One, with the responsibility that both me and my sister have in running the place, I think there is a tendency to be safer than more courageous. I think that both of us try to fight it every day. I think my dad finds a way, so does my mom, honestly, once in maybe a month or once in 2 months to somehow lecture us in pushing us to be more risk-taking, more fearless. And I think that that's a journey that both me and my sister are on. It's not super easy for us, but I think we're starting to get it.
So you've grown up around your father's entrepreneurial energy. I'm curious, was there a belief or habit about of his that pushed you back initially, but now you find yourself embracing it?
Yeah, he has an incredible ability to start from scratch in the middle of no matter what he's doing. And famously in the company also, people will make fun of him in a way that, he says, so let's take a step back. And that let's take a step back literally means he'll take his own ideas or anybody else's ideas, scrap them and restart from zero without any qualms, any implications. I think that is an incredible ability. I used to get frustrated because there's a lot of progress that we would have made, but I see the value in restarting.
Yeah.
Because ultimately doing the right thing takes you much, much faster to your destination than incrementally sort of moving there. So I think I've learned to value that ability a lot.
I mean, it gives you fresh perspective also, and
definitely.
Identify mistakes or something.
Absolutely. And the courage it takes to just destroy your own thought process is, I think, part of that.
So stepping into leadership at young age, especially in a company with so much legacy, couldn't have been easy. Did you ever face moments of doubts or hesitation? And how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I think as a 21-year-old kid, you come in full of energy, full of this I'll change the world type of attitude. I hope to keep feeling that way even as I age. But that energy and enthusiasm in a company that has existed for 20, 25 years is not so easy for everyone to digest. So there are always clashes, to be honest. I think there is obviously this fight that you have to battle, which is you're the boss's kid. People will listen to you for that. And you have to find a way to build your own identity, your own respect. And that's effort. I think many things that I would have done wrong, but I think it takes time to build that. I think the second thing is that every few months, very honestly, you'd feel like there's probably a better world out there. You'd feel like every single inch you're moving forward, you're being pushed, several inches back. And I think at those moments, you soon start to realize that what people say, and I share this with some of the folks that join us newly, is that people say that the grass is greener on the other side, right? There's that saying. I think very early on, you sort of realize that the grass is probably green where you take care of it. So no matter where you go, it's your attitude and perspective that will matter. So I think that I did feel like quitting every few months. I still do.
That's being honest.
Yeah, but it's got nothing to do with that. It's that moment of frustration that you have to just sort of fight through.
Passes.
In the beginning, it's harder. 15 years later, it's much, much easier to do it. So I think those are probably the two big things that I would advise anyone getting into either a family business or even just work in general. Spend time on the relationships and respect, and I think fight your own instinct to quit.
So my dad always tells me to take the team along with us, with you when you're working and not work solo. So do you also have that? Do you also follow that?
Yeah, I try to, I would say.
Yeah, but it's tough.
It's hard. It's hard. Yeah. And there's a lot of insecurity, right, through the whole thing. So yeah, I try, and hopefully I'm better and better. Yeah.
So you work closely with MSMEs, most of whom are using digital tools for the very first time. Has that changed your view on how people learn, adapt, or even how you define success?
I'll share my observations. So from very early on, I've traveled quite a bit. More recently, in the last year, roughly every 2 weeks, I step out for 2 or 3 days in a fortnight, basically. And bulk of my travel takes me to not the metros in India. I'm trying to explore and understand parts that I've never seen before.
Like?
So recently I'd gone to Devas. It's a small town outside of Indore.
Okay.
So we spent some time and met some customers there, met some chartered accountants there. I'd gone to Patna for the first time in my life. Last week, although Ahmedabad is now almost tier 1, but I'd gone to Ahmedabad, Nashik. So it's places like these, and I think there are two things that I've probably observed overall. First, 15 years ago and today, I kind of see totally opposite view of MSMEs than what I think others see in MSMEs. I think MSMEs are incredibly tech forward. They're very willing to adopt. I think that people misconstrue the inability of the manufacturer, like let's say a Tally, to be able to make products appropriate for them for their inability to adopt. So I think that I'll take a small story. I was in Calcutta a few months ago, and I met this maybe 60, 70-year-old auto parts trading company owner. The company must have been 70 years old, and so was the gentleman. And my sister and me had walked in, and we do customer visits quite regularly. And
that is nice.
Yeah. And before we even sat down, typically when any customer will ask tea or coffee, pani, and this customer, before we sat down, asked, "तो आप लोग AI के बारे में क्या कर रहे हो?" And it's such a counterintuitive thing that someone who's touching their 70s in a company that's in their 70s in a traditional business is so forward-looking when it comes to technology. I think that really represents my experience, at least in the last 15 years. I also see the second part, though, that Indian businesses, just because they're small, and very honestly, now that we're moving much more aggressively outside of India, even businesses abroad, whether it's Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, we are seeing that most of these businesses are very complex when it comes to how do you build technology for them. Small, simple things. India, for example, the average age of the PC is going to be older. The person will have the latest looking laptop, but the internals will not be the latest, for example. Now, how do you build a software that works in that environment? The day-to-day management of the business is done by the owner, which means that there is no necessarily process that gets followed. For example, sales don't only happen after you buy things. In Bangalore, a typical example, you go to Chickpet and you buy a sari and you don't see a color that you like maybe, and you tell this person that, can I get a purple one or a green one? Or that person will call someone, 2 minutes, madam, main le aunga. And upstairs, there's another store. He gets a sari from there and he'll sell it to you. He's never bought that sari. It's a different store. But how do you build a software now that can sell a product without a purchase? I think those are the challenges that we sort of see. So while India is very tech forward and the Indian entrepreneur we've seen extremely, extremely tech forward, we also see that if the product doesn't work, it sort of becomes an unforgiving state. That nahi, ye to chalega hi nahi. And I think that that's the responsibility that people like us have to solve problems that can help them become more efficient in the way they run. So I think these are probably the two observations over the last 15 years. The other part of your question was, how do we therefore think of success?
Yeah.
For us, it's probably very simple from a sentence. Our intent is to really help the business owner grow. That's it. So if we're able to make that intent real, I think we count ourselves successful. There's no metric. We don't think of ourselves as, there are ways potentially to actually measure it. But I think that's one of the reasons that Nupur and me spend so much time in the market with customers. We can't meet, 30 lakh customers.
Yeah.
But even if we get a sense that these are things that we could do better to help them grow, that's sort of what we take back and use to run the business. So I think it's really the touching lives, trying to help them. I think that's really it.
Nice. You've described Tally as more than a fintech company.
Sure.
More of a tech company with a deeper mission. How does that mindset shift influence the way you're building it now?
Yeah, that's another great question. So when we think about a technical company, the kind of problems that we solve are actually very simple user-based problems. But what it takes to solve them requires reasonable technical depth. For example, we realized early on that running an object-oriented database would be better for our customers than running a table-based database. And there's no purpose-made object-oriented database, for example, that exists. So we made our own. We realized that the math that the OS uses wouldn't be good enough for the kind of use cases that our customers would expect from us. So we didn't use the OS's math engine. We actually made our own and wrote our own math routines.
Okay.
The reason I'm giving these examples is it really drives the mindset of how we think about things going forward. So if you talk about AI now, the way we are thinking about AI is, while we're experimenting with some existing models and building out use cases, there's a lot of our attitude goes into, okay, do we need to build something here which doesn't exist globally? Does this use case require us to go into some kind of technical detail to make it private, trustable, cost effective? Those questions, I think, are really what guide the sort of mindset that we've had. It's how we solve problems, and it's hard to scale. I think both Nupur and me are figuring out what will it take to actually build a lasting institution that approaches problems with this first principles mindset. We're on the journey. I don't think we're there yet, though.
Yeah. You're aiming to serve 3.5 million customers globally by 2026, I meant. Expanding in regions like Middle East, Africa, Southeast Asia. What have you learned from building in such diverse markets, culturally and operationally?
Learning. I can share what all we've picked up till now. I think the first is being local is very, very critical. So for us in the Middle East, the teams that we try to hire are largely local in background. So UAE is not that, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, etc. But Saudi is. And we try to do a lot of work to try and make sure it's not an Indian team only that sort of works there. Kenya, for us, we have another office in Nairobi. It's the same there. Bangladesh, we have another office. It's the same there. So I think that local experience, exposure matters a ton. I think the second thing is that when you're building for the diversity, you're needing to think a little bit lower in the tech stack. And willing to be able to modify things much, much deeper than the surface level. So I think we're learning how to do that. I think the third is probably just from a structure perspective. It's not something that I would say that every company has to do it, but it's just the way we believe we want to run it is make sure that we're a local company there, not just from the culture, but how we give back to society there. So the way we're crafting our operations is to make sure that in Kenya, if we exist, we're not going to exist for a short term, we're going to exist for the long term. Same thing in Saudi, same thing in Bangladesh. So I guess these three are probably big areas.
So do you also see yourself competing with global tech giants or enabling the next wave of local entrepreneurs?
Yeah, definitely. I think the SME space, to be honest, is an ignored space. It's an ignored space because the right products are expensive to build there, and the ability to deliver those products to customers is expensive as well. So it's very hard to make money in this space. And globally, very few companies have succeeded. So most large companies, when they say MSME, it's actually the much larger rung of MSMEs that get serviced. So while we do compete, I think that they don't see this as an attractive enough market. So I think that's probably one part. So we run many programs with India. In India, there's a Startup India that we work with. There are many local state initiatives that try to encourage entrepreneurship. We don't just work on the software side, but actually on enablement programs to help entrepreneurs run their businesses better as well. So there's a lot of work that we do at the grassroots level and very localized.
So you've launched AI features like invoicing scanning via WhatsApp and email.
Sure.
Was there a moment during testing or rollout where something unexpected happened, something that really changed how you thought about automation?
Oh, yeah. So just from my background, I'm a mechanical engineer.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
University of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'm learning so much about how computing gets done, what AI actually is, that we've taken a bunch of experiments and we have been trying to bring a trustable experience to our customers. That's probably the word I would use. And I think the core of AI is that it's a predictive and a probabilistic technology.
Yeah.
And the domain that we work in, unfortunately, is a deterministic domain. I can't say that this invoice may be 10,150 rupees. It has to be 10,150 rupees. So I think the use of technology, the kind of experiences that we try to craft, have to meet that benchmark of, can my customer trust me? Will it really be useful for them? So I think over the last few months, we've run many closed user group sessions and experiments with customers and learned a ton. Hopefully, in the next few months, we'll scale this even further. So we've got that as one experiment. The second one is there a way to talk to Tally? That can I ask it a bunch of questions? How much did I sell in August? Which product sold the most in August? Stuff like this. And you can get more and more complex. Yeah.
And in the topic of AI, you're building with this assistant with Llama models and your own classifiers with such a linguistically diverse user base. How are you thinking about language, nuances, and the very human side of tech?
Yeah. So we're actually experimenting with a bunch of models. We're not stuck to any one. I think the core point, though, is that from a user experience, I can talk about my own. I use some Gen AI tools. I think what I see is there are spikes in my usage and then drops in my usage, and it has changed over the last few months. In our domain, the one thing that I feel will be uncompromisable is trust. I don't think it's possible for any user to ask a question and then me giving a more likely answer when I know that that answer is probably wrong. So even if it's a 60% probability that that answer is right, I think that that's where we will falter. So the issue is not so much language, but from the human factor, it is about, can I trust the system when I use it?
You have a point.
And that's a journey that I think not just Tally, but every single company that is touting AI and backing AI needs to figure out.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how we're thinking about, that human factor of what it means.
Sure. AI, cloud, remote work for a company that used to worship whiteboards and in-person interaction. How do you teach old school values in a new age world?
I think very honestly, values are neither old school nor new school, to be honest. I think the way we sort of do it is, and it's better to ask someone from Tally, to be honest. Like I'll have a biased view. I think from my side, We really try to do a lot to share stories. I think between Nupur and me, we meet with our teams on a very regular basis. We aren't perfect people when it comes to even our values, I think, but the intent is to sort of role model it. So we've got 4 values: honor, nurture, master, and create, as an example. Honor is easy to communicate because it is very common. But master, for example, is not a value that everyone has. I think both of us value learning so much that simple things like saying, I don't know, when people expect you to know, is absolutely okay for us. Both of us spend a lot of time not just reading, but actively taking courses, whether it's on computer science, fundamentals, AI, whatever. So there's a lot of effort that we put in to share our experiences with the team. And I think that that makes a difference. That is there an environment that you create which allows people to reflect this? At the crux of it, though, I'll go back to what my dad had, I think, what has stuck with me, that just be kind. I think that's made probably the biggest difference to how we run the company.
Absolutely. I came across something your father said to you once. Are you writing programs to make the programmer's life easier or the users?
Yeah.
So how do you keep that focus on simplicity, especially as Tally gets more sophisticated under the hood?
Yeah. So my granddad had said that to my dad when he was building his first application.
Okay.
And
So
it
I
was
stand corrected.
for him, my dad's first system was rejected. Second system was rejected simply because of this one statement. And I think that we've really, really tried over the last several years to stick to it. I can't say very honestly that we've always managed to do it, but we are quick to learn and quick to correct. So earlier, for example, a lot of product decisions were taken by Dad. A lot of product decisions were taken by me. And slowly the team is taking more and more of those decisions. So I think it comes down to what is the benchmark that the individual working at Tally is willing to accept. And I think the job that Nupur and me have is how do we communicate a higher and higher benchmark to meet the spirit of what that sort of statement is. So I don't think there's a secret sauce. I think it really is the conversation that you have with people who are actually now driving product decisions and making sure that they are not letting the bar lower down, just because we have a time pressure or something like that.
You've mentioned before that your product philosophy is all about adapting to how business owners actually work, not forcing them into software logic. Can you share a time where the belief really influenced a product design?
Of course. Take the same sari example that I took.
Yeah.
That's an older example in the product where customers are allowed to enter data in the manner that they see fit rather than what traditional software would say is mandated for you to get data right. Recently, we rolled out a connected banking experience. And one of the things with banking transactions, it's not a new experience. A lot of other companies do it, but no one has been able to scale this experience. And I think that one of the things that most manufacturers like us don't recognize, and what we have forced ourselves to do, is build the technology that allows businesses to connect with banks the way they see fit. Simple case. When you look at your bank statement, you will see a whole bunch of lines which say bank charge, bank charge, bank charge. Typically, when you enter a single entry inside your ERP, you'll say bank charges and you'll total all of these single lines and then enter that data. Most software will not allow you to have a one-to-many map. Sometimes you may have a many-to-one map. Let's say, for example, I bought that sari. That sari was, let's say, 1,20,000 rupees, a very expensive sari. And I could not pay it in one installment, I paid it in 2 installments. So in the bank statement, I have 2 entries, but the collection has happened against one single invoice. So is there a way to now reconcile 2 into 1? These may seem small, that why can't you just manage them? But I think that they are very, very powerful in the way that businesses actually run. So the decisions that we take, the architecture that we run in how some of this is managed is sort of important. And I think that as recent as release 6, which is just April 9th we launched, These are the type of decisions that we've taken.
Lovely. To keep getting better and better. Your partner network was critical during the GST rollout.
Yes.
You even restructured your ecosystem with certified partners, new roles, training. Looking back, what part of that transformation do you feel had the biggest impact?
The care that we took to have conversations with everyone. I think policy changes are only as good as its implementation in a way. And I think that the team really spent an extraordinary amount of time individually talking to partners, helping them through the confusion. There are conversations that we could have had better, but I feel like that's really the core and the crux of how it mattered. I remember partners who were doing 3-4 simultaneous events at a time, and we had this one PPT that we had circulated to everyone. Somehow customers that I meet today still refer back to the examples in that PPT. So we used a company called Ratna Steel and explained how GST works and how they should think about GST for their own business. Many customers say, I learned GST because of Ratna Steel. Mm-hmm. So we use that example, and I think that partners would not have been able to take this with the same enthusiasm if we didn't go over and above, in having those conversations. So the restructuring is just about that.
You're saying communication.
Communication. It's like, to be honest, I traveled so much during that transition time, and this was just about 2 years before GST actually got rolled out. So about 14 is what I'm going to say, 14, maybe 15. And I ended up traveling for like 60 days straight, and my meetings would start at 7:30 for breakfast and ended by about 12 post-dinner. But it was only meeting with 3 or 4 people, and those conversations would be deeply emotional, would take 3 or 4 hours. And if you didn't invest that time, I don't think that the enthusiasm would remain. So I think that that's probably the secret sauce.
Yeah. Was there any memorable stories from your partners on the ground during that time? Stories that made you realize the difference Cali was making beyond just software?
Yeah, I would say 2 stand out. There was a gentleman in Bombay named Ashwin Dedia. He's a CA, and what an incredible guy. He's unfortunately no more. COVID got the best of him. But during the time of GST, that individual man would have shared what GST actually is to, my guess is 50 or 60,000 people alone. What an incredible amount of time spent, energy. Actually, he would have, I'm not even exaggerating, stadiums filled with people, small stadiums, but stadiums filled with people who would just come to listen to him talk about it. I think it's less to do with Tally, it's more to do with the impact that folks like him wanted to sort of leave behind. I'll talk about another small story, not necessarily of the GST time, but more recently I met someone who does a lot of YouTube videos training on Tally. I'm historically from Rajasthan, and he's from a village that has about 9,000 people. But his entire livelihood runs on educating people so that they get jobs and better jobs in their life. So he's got a few 100,000, few lakh subscribers on YouTube, which is mind-blowing. Sitting out of, it takes him like 2 days to come to Bangalore whenever we call him, which is inspiring.
And Tally's been around for decades, but you've managed to retain what many call a startup mindset.
Sure.
When does that mindset get tested the most, and how do you keep that alive across the teams?
Yeah, I think as you grow bigger, there's a tendency to take less and less risk. I think that both Mom and Dad are seeing it with Nupur and me as well, that our tendency to take risk versus secure what is there, it does creep in. And so between Nupur and me, the biggest job that we have is probably to make sure that our leadership team, their teams, continue to feel the need to take risk and back themselves more than others would back you, sort of. So I think it's as you grow bigger, how do you keep that mindset to keep making sure that you have this risk-taking ability? That's probably the biggest thing. To reflect that, right now we're running a project which actually we're rewriting our entire tech stack from scratch. It's a very, very complex and a very, very challenging project. But that's sort of what keeps the energy alive. Projects like this that make sure that you're willing to risk it all in order to bring in the next, decade or 2 decades of growth.
Because it's really important to get the teams motivated, right? And half your battle is won.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So you backed fintechs and startups like Arohan and Lido.
Yeah.
What's one lesson you've learned from watching other founders build that you've secretly taken back to Tally?
Oh, that's a great question. One lesson that I've learned that I would take back, I think what we've been trying to do is work faster. So while we do have this risk-taking point, as organizations become bigger, there is a sense of bureaucracy that does creep in. And I think that Tally, especially in the last year and a half, we've been really trying to figure out what it will take to make us much, much faster. I think founders of smaller companies are able to do that much better than people like us. And I think that we need to get close to them, if not, there. I think that's probably the big thing.
Tally started with floppy disks and is now building for a cloud-enabled and AI future.
Yes.
For someone who's been using it for 20 years, how do you make sure they don't feel left behind? And what does that mean for the small business owners like in Indore or Nairobi who still run things on PC?
Yeah, I think it's less to do with PC, AI. I don't think it's...
Like you answered before, I think.
Yeah, it's more to do with how you take the product to them. So first, of course, how you design the product. And I think that if you're not designing for simplicity, usability, trust, those tenants, no matter what feature you give, it won't matter. So that's one thing that we try to do. I think the second one is that we are still a very conversational organization. We are one of the few that don't use an IVR, for example. I hate it. Why would my customer like it? So we really do, regardless of the scale, we really do try to reach people and have conversations with them. It's not necessarily possible with every single person, but anyone that does want to talk, we are absolutely more than willing. And I think those are probably the two things that for any new shift, we'll have to make sure that we manage. Build it right and then take it right.
Both you and Bhakti are deeply involved in shaping legacy-driven organization, Tally and Reliance. What does partnership look like when both people like you carry such high-impact, high-pressure roles? Where do you both find calm in the chaos?
Ooh, weekends are precious. Bhakti and me talk about this a lot. I think she's done such an incredible job with Tita, and I think she's also so ambitious that it inspires me. I'm hoping that work that I do inspires her, but I really think that we protect our time very, very dearly.
Okay.
Time that we have together. It's okay if we're just sitting and watching TV. It's okay if we are silent and driving somewhere or flying somewhere. It doesn't matter. But I think that time that we have together is really precious. I think the second is that intent really, really matters. We have to want to be there for each other and we have to want to show up for each other. So I think both of us do put a lot of effort in for that.
Wonderful. And do your visions ever overlap? Have you ever talked about building something together?
I feel like if we work together, we would slaughter each other. We are both alpha people. And I think that, we do some investing together. I think it's not that we don't, but we've never actually spoken about us starting something big together. So maybe someday. Someday.
So this is a company built by your grandfather, shaped by your father, and now evolving under you. How do you strike the balance between honoring legacy and leaving your own imprint?
Yeah, again, a great question. I think the more I age, the more I travel, the more I speak to people, I think the company has less to do with legacy. It has less to do with my own imprint. I think what we need to figure out probably is what will it take to create a world-class product company out of this country. I think there's a tremendous amount of possibility for us to do that. I think the space, our unique perspective, creates a playing field that I think is honestly ours to take. So I think over a period of time, it's become much less about legacy. There used to be a big insecurity about, I want to leave an impression about myself. I think it's really not that anymore. For several years now, I think it's a lot to do with what can we do to make sure that our customers are running their businesses better and that we're able to serve millions and millions of entrepreneurs. Like, I'd love to serve every entrepreneur on this planet at some point.
Wow, wonderful. So you've got 2.5 million businesses depending on you. What keeps you humble when you walk into the Bangalore office every Monday morning?
What keeps me humble? Oh, I don't know. I think every visit that you make to customers, there's so much that you learn. That's probably the biggest one. We also do a lot of customer meetings with our leadership team. So every Monday, our leadership team gets together. And if not every week, every couple of weeks, we have customers talk to us, and many of them fire us straight out. Y'all are not doing this correctly. Y'all are not doing this correctly. And I think that is super, super important.
Keep a check on you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So should we dive deep into rapid fire questions now?
Absolutely.
What's one principle that guides every decision you make?
Be kind.
Or how do you balance innovation with risk?
I don't know. I think probably courage, and I think that's a lot of the role that Nupur and me have.
What's a misconception people have about leadership?
I think a lot of people see leadership as taking reports and making sure that things get done. I don't think that's the point. I think you have to set the bar high and not accept mediocrity in your own eyes. I think that's a much bigger role that leadership actually plays.
I love that. Which failure shaped your approach to problem solving the most?
Early on in my career, we ran several projects. Earlier on, I spoke about how policy is not really the maker or breaker, but the implementation is, and implementation really comes down to conversation. I think in the early days, I learned clearly, squarely, that just making structural changes or process changes won't matter. The change may have the best intent, but if the person receiving it doesn't feel that way, you have a problem. So conversations are probably the biggest thing that I've learned.
Communication also. How do you measure impact beyond numbers?
Visiting. A mentor of mine taught Nupur and me a really cool word called micro-sensing. So when you visit, you have to keep your antennas, pointing in all directions to feel what is going on. I think that metrics only guide you a certain distance, but if you're not in touch with reality, I think things can really get you messed up.
What's the biggest challenge the fintech world faces today?
Patience. I think that India needs institutions that are built for 20, 30, 50 years. I think that success overnight, it's phenomenal, it's amazing. I just think that if you're wanting to solve for really large-scale problems, it's okay to be patient. It's okay to see through the set of failures to hit that success. So yeah, patience is probably the big one.
How do you stay curious in a rapidly evolving industry?
Because it's rapidly evolving, there's no option but to stay curious.
If you had unlimited resources, what problem would you tackle first?
That's a hard question. I'll talk as Tejas before I talk as on the perspective of Tally. I think unlimited money, I think probably food, water and energy. I think those are three big issues that the next decade or 2 decades we have to figure out.
What role does empathy play in building technology? I think a huge role.
Huge, huge.
How do you separate your personal values from business goals?
You don't. I don't think you should. I think there's you are who you are. You need to become what you need to become, and there's a journey that you have. I think if you keep fighting business goals with personal values, I feel like there's an internal conflict that's hard to overcome. So you don't fight it.
When was the last time you changed your mind on something important?
Yesterday.
What?
Or this morning. We do a leadership offsite, and through that, both Nupur and me have been debating through how do we want to run it. I had a very, very clear perspective yesterday. I spoke to her on the way here, and she had a better point of view. So
It happens
changed
very
my mind.
often.
5 times a day.
You invested in fintech, built Tijori, and scaled Tally. What's more stressful, launching a product, managing legacy, or attending a Goenka family dinner?
I'm not stressed out too easily.
Okay.
So none of them at the moment.
Okay. What legacy do you want to leave through your work?
I hope to leave behind a better world. That's nothing else. And it's not really just me. I think I hope to inspire people to do that as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming here, and thank you for this incredible conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
That's a wrap on this episode with Tejas Goenka, a glimpse into legacy, leadership, and the future of Indian enterprise. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and follow the Expressions podcast by the New Indian Express as we share inspiring stories every Friday right here.